Back to football with the 2025 Longhorns hitting the practice field for the first time this afternoon. And yesterday's media availability for the coaching staff. Jack and Luke was there too. But the true, if you're wondering, the true freshman that I heard the most about yesterday from all the coaches, Nick Townsend from Spring to Caney. He's going to be an impactful special teams player and maybe cracked up the depth chart at tight end.
They said he gained like 55 pounds.
No, that's not him. That's not him. I'll tell you about that. The edge, Lance Jackson. Yeah. Landon Jackson's his brother's in the NFL. Lance Jackson's a guy to watch for. Grayson Littleton. Everybody was talking about this kid, this cornerback out of Georgia. Mm-hmm. Special teams, Jeff Banks mentioned him. The defensive backs coach mentioned him. Grayson Littleton is a one to watch. He came early and had a good spring, as did Cade Phillips, who's out of the Houston area. Bo Barnes, the linebacker out of South Dallas, and then Justice Terry out of Manchester, Georgia. Those are the freshmen you heard about.
The big body D tackle.
But as I've said, well, he's only 270 pounds, so he's playing edge right now.
Oh, wow.
And what we found out is the defensive tackles coach Kenny Baker and the edge coach Leon Clark kind of fighting over him.
Sure.
Because he's really talented.
Of course.
But what's he going to be? Is he going to be an edge? You can't play interior in the SEC at 270. But his body would probably hold 290, 295, and his body looks like he's Aaron Donald in a starter kit, the way he's built. But he's got to put some weight on. But he's a freshman. So, again, this is the year where the freshmen aren't going to make much of an impact, unless it's on special teams, in my opinion. But that's the guys I was hearing about yesterday.
Am I thinking of Washington, the tight end that put on 55 pounds?
That's a noteworthy thing.
Yeah.
As far as newsworthiness, that Brad Spence, the edge rusher from Arkansas, who transferred in, he's only edge rushing now. He's not playing linebacker. At Arkansas, he was more of a stand-up linebacker, but he also rushed the passer. Now at Texas, according to Leon Clark, the new edge coach, that's what he's doing exclusively. He's going to back up essentially Colin Simmons. They'll rotate those guys. And that's where Trey Moore, they've kind of switched spots. Trey Moore's now doing more stand-up linebacker, also will rush the passer. But as Pete Kwiatkowski said, they're preparing Trey Moore for the next level too. That's probably going to be his role in the NFL. He maybe doesn't have the elite pass rushing skills to just be an exclusive pass rusher in the NFL. So he's going to have to be kind of a hybrid, and they're already getting him ready for that. Plus it provides depth for them at both positions in his senior year with the Longhorns for Trey Moore. So that was a little bit newsworthy. And to you, what you said at tight end, I mean, everybody's happy about Jack Endries coming in, right? The Cal transfer. He's going to immediately replace Gunnar Helm, because it was funny. Jeff Banks said it pretty clearly. He's kind of like, man, we've lost 99% of our tight end production over the last two off seasons with JT Sanders, Gunnar Helm, and Juan Davis all gone. Yep. We had to replenish. So to get Jack Endries, that was an absolute goal in the portal for Jeff. Coach Banks wanted a punter and a kicker, which he got in Mason Shipley and Jack Boomeister, who we're just going to call Boom, the new punter from Utah, but also Cal Endries, Jack Endries. They had to have him. But to your point about the question about gaining weight, Jordan Matthews, Jack, is a tight end out of Langham Creek down in Houston. But he was a basketball player and a football player at high school. And this goes back to my thought about coaching continuity. They had a vision for this kid that he's a basketball player, but when he gets to Texas, he's going to devote his time to football. And according to Jeff Banks yesterday, a kid who showed up at Texas a year and a half ago at 215 is now over 260. Because he's been in the football weight room, not playing basketball, focusing on football. And now you have a really elite, potentially elite level athletic tight end who's got a great, wingspan and ball catch radius and all the things you want in that position. I think JT Sanders, as far as the measurables, who's got basketball-like ball ability and ball skills, and now he's up over 260 pounds. And they'd like to get him back down to about 255, but they've been trying to put weight on him. So that's a guy to watch. That's probably your too deep at tight end right now as the season begins with Jack Endries and Jordan Matthews, who got hurt. Jordan Washington, who got hurt during camp, training camp. Spring training, spring football, but so we didn't hear much about him. But according to Jeff Banks, he's had a great offseason. So those are some of the newsy things that came from yesterday. But the assumption would be that the biggest change for Texas would be on the offense, right? Mm-hmm. Defense returns a ton. Now they're just tweaking to get the best players on the field against favorable matchups week to week. Special teams, obviously they've had a lot of new faces, but according to Jeff Banks, the message doesn't change from what we're doing. We just have to execute better. They've got a very veteran kicker and punter. And Jeff was very clear yesterday, Coach Banks, about the penalties that they had on special teams last year. A roughing the kicker here, a hold on a one explosive kick return. Remember the Georgia game that started with the Matthew Golden long kick return? They got called back because of a hold. There was a roughing the punter. And as Jeff Banks said, we just got to make our kicks. We got to make our kick. I mean, the Clemson game stands out. There are other games. We just got to be able to make kicks, and that's why they've changed that. But the assumption would be by most where the change is going to come on is on offense with the new quarterback, 4 new offensive linemen, the return of C.J. Baxter from the injury. He's back in the running back room, slew of new pass catchers we've already mentioned. But according to Kyle Flood, the co-offensive coordinator, that maybe not, because everything with Arch Manning and his legs, they're going to change up this offense, and it'll look like a different offense. Well, listen to Kyle Flood saying not so fast.
I don't think it does. Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, I think there'll be some minor things that we'll do certainly as we go through training camp. And again, like always playing to the strengths of who the players are. From the quarterback to the lineman to the wide receivers to the running backs to the tight ends. What are our strengths this year? I don't think you can't just assume that we're going to look the same as last year because, like I said, we've got a lot of different faces out there, a lot of different skill sets out there. I said, but we'll figure that out. But systematically, though, we've got a really strong foundation. And that foundation's been built over time. And I think the system has proven that when executed properly, it can win at a really high level. So I think we've got a really good foundation here. Now, the little tweaks and the little movements that'll happen with the offense, that'll all happen during training camp.
Coach, you said this group may have some.
All right, so there you go. There's a little bit from Kyle Flood. He also praised Arch Manning for his leadership. Talked about how, this kid went with Quinn Ewers. He was so deferential to Quinn, understanding it was his team, but this is now his team. And Arch Manning is really bringing the competitive fire and the leadership to that side of the ball. And, but as you just heard from Kyle Flood, the offense probably doesn't change too much. They will add a little bit of quarterback run game to it, which is important to, making them tougher to defend, which I think that brings. But they're not going to put the quarterback in peril. You know that. Also, to get to talk to the other co-offensive coordinator, which is the quarterback's coach, A.J. Milwe, that whole core has been together since they got here. All came from Alabama. Kwiatkowski was the lone outside hire. But, talking with A.J. Milwe yesterday, he was asked pretty clearly about, how does he going to handle being the opening day starter, all the pressure, all the hype, all that comes with it. A.J. Milwe said he's built to handle it. He's a Manning. He's been living it his whole life, but he also said he's been preparing behind Quinn Ewers for this opportunity.
They come into these situations where you have to sit and you don't prepare yourself to be a starting quarterback in that first year or that second year. This kid has not done that. This kid has prepared himself like he has been a starter, whether he started or not, for the last 2 years. So he has put himself in a position to be ready to play that game when that time comes.
That would come in 31 days. That's A.J. Milwe, the offensive coordinator. Now, the other big question, right, is what about the backup quarterback? Who's behind Arch Manning? You have Trey Owens, who's a redshirt freshman, redshirt sophomore, I guess, out of Cy-Fair. And then they went and got Matthew Caldwell, who's a senior player, essentially. Played at Troy last year. A.J. Milwe was asked how important that competition is going to be in this training camp.
I think it's important because since we've been here, our starter has not started every game since we've been here. So that's going to be a big piece of this fall camp and kind of finding out who that guy's going to be.
All right, so big piece. And what about Matthew Caldwell? Why did they bring him in? Listen to A.J. Milwe on this, and we know it's a bunch of young guys, Arch Manning being the veteran leader essentially. But Matthew Caldwell is a class of 2021 kid out of the state of Alabama who went to Jacksonville State. He went to Gardner-Webb and then Troy. He's 6'4", he's 215 pounds. He's got more legs than Trey Owens does, and here's why they felt like they needed to bring him in.
I think for us, even with Arch, prior to adding Matthew, we were a very young quarterback room. You have KJ, who's been here now all of 7 months. You have Trey, that's been here a year, going on year 2. And then Arch is in his 3rd year. That's still really young from a quarterback room perspective. So Matthew brought in this level of maturity, and a guy that's played in real college football games, has played very meaningful snaps. So I think that's been very beneficial, and you've seen it throughout the summer. You've seen his maturity. You see that he's not, a guy that's been here. He's only been here a limited amount of time, but he's had college programs under his belt that he's been able to grow in. So he kind of knows what to expect from that standpoint of things.
All right, so there's A.J. Milwe. At the quarterback side, which would be obviously with Arch Manning and the hype. But as A.J. said, they haven't had a quarterback play every game since they've been here, and that's very typical for football. You got to have a backup ready to go. Will it be Trey Owens? Will it be Matthew Caldwell? Will it be a combination of both? That's what the next 4 weeks are all about for the Longhorns. But that's at every position. We'll get back into that conversation about getting your best players on the field at all spots. And we'll hear Kyle Flood more on the offensive line, 4 new starters. 3 of them are pretty much locked down. I think that's fair to say. We'll tell you about that. But then the other 2, get the best guys. Who's going to compete? Who's going to come in and take what they asked them to get better at during the summertime? Who's going to hit the field today and show that? That's across the board.